everybody, to the Breakdown Podcast YouTube channel. My name's Corey, and in this video, we are going to be discussing the latest. That's episode 9 of Superman and Lois. And with me today, I've got my partner. It's Vic.
Well, what's happening?
Up there.
Nope, I'm next to you. Always start out next to you. Other way.
I can never remember. All right, this is a much better episode, and I'm not that they've been not that they've been bad in the past, but this is cranking things up a little bit more, turning that heat up a little bit. So Vic, let's go ahead and break it down.
All right. Yeah, dude, this episode, they, like you said, they really did crank it up to the next level. This is episode 9. It's titled Loyal Subjects, and that's Subjekts, not your traditional spelling. In this episode,
what's that supposed to mean?
We've got some information that I'll get to in a minute. Anyway, okay. Some actual comic book information that kind of fits into that. But in this episode, Morgan Edge realizes that Lana has been feeding information to Lois on what they're doing and the young leadership program and all that stuff, which is not aptly named considering it's like young leaders, the young leadership program, but everybody in it are full-grown adults. Like when you hear young leadership, you think, oh, okay, it's going to be teenagers, but that's definitely not how this is going down.
No, these are all like middle-aged people.
Yeah, and somehow, and I still have not figured this out, even though there's a very small time jump here, Lois knows that he is he's injecting Kryptonian consciousnesses into these people, which we see him do when he uses her friend to do the procedure on. She comes out of it like in a different mindset and she starts speaking Kryptonian. And as soon as she did that, I was like, oh, he's transferring these souls, Kryptonian souls, into these people's bodies. That's what's going on. But Lois, in the next scene, seems to already know this with no explanation.
Because she's watched the previous episode.
I guess so.
So she knows what's been going on.
And in this episode, also, Jordan we find that he's being affected by the Kryptonian gas that has affected Superman. Superman takes a flight to South America, which I thought was really cool. Like he went to Japan first. Now he's gone to South America, and they're really kind of showing off the fact that he is literally defending the entire planet from the bad element that's, doing things. So he goes to South America, he stops a bank robbery, and during that bank robbery, he gets just fired upon left and right, and he's taking bullets, taking shots. The entire time this is going on, I'm going, Superman, Ricochet's kill. Like, these bullets are just bouncing off of him in all different directions, and luckily no innocent person got hit. But eventually he starts...
how to angle them.
Raw, there you go. I like your visual there. He ends up force pushing, as I like to say it was, but he starts doing his little sprint towards them and knocking them out and throwing them into the walls and stuff like that. But he starts getting woozy and he ends up passing out. And I thought it was pretty good from a writing standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, that at that point, all the bad guys are like, he's down, get him! And they just stood over him and started peppering him with every last shot they could, which again, should have been hitting them in the shins, the chest, and everything else as the bullets bounced off. But when he gets back after he stops them, he gets up and he stops the main bad guy, and the cop there's like, Superman, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine, we're all good. And he takes off and goes home, and when he gets home, he takes off his shirt, and he looked like me after a 24-hour game of paintball where I got shot a lot. He's just got bruises everywhere, dude, everywhere. And she's like, what is that? He's like, oh, it's no big deal. I just stopped a robbery and they shot at me. She's like, yeah, that's not supposed to happen. Why is this a deal? And he's like, oh, it's got to have something to do with that gas I inhaled. It's weakening me a little bit, and it's not having the effect that I think Lang wanted. But it is having an effect on me, and that effect is now also being spread to Jordan. Jordan's, though, is coming out in a different way. He's got like a massive summer cold, which I just got over, so I know how much that sucks. And he's sneezing, and when he sneezes into his hand instead of his elbow like he's supposed to. Jordan, come on. You've been through COVID training. He sneezes into his hand, and when he looks at it, he's got like an ice ball in his hand. And
No,
he's
it's
like,
frozen. Not.
that is not normal. I gotta go. And this is right at the moment where he was just about to seal the deal with Sarah and kiss the girl, as Sebastian would say, and he just tears off.
His hand looked like Jack Nicholson at the end of the
And he hits his EMF thing or whatever it is that alerts his dad. His dad shows up. He's like, "What's wrong?" And he sneezes again. He's got like ice claws coming out between his fingers. And his dad's like, "Yeah, we gotta go." And he takes off and takes him home.
Yeah, that's not normal.
You're right. He takes him home. After a little bit of conjecture between everybody, they explain, we don't know what's going on with him. He's all like bundled up in a park in his bedroom. They're like, "Oh, it's 0 below in here." And when Jonathan walks, he's like, "This is like Iditarod cold. What's going on in here?" And he's like, "Yeah, your brother's sick. He's got a Kryptonian cold of some sort, thanks to your grandfather." And he sneezes, and he literally like frost flash freezes the lamp with like ice coming off of it in a direction. So basically, I think like this synthetic kryptonite gas is causing his abilities to manifest faster, but not in a good way. So he now sneezes. He's got his frost breath, basically. And Superman's like, "Yeah, we got to go," because he can't breathe. All of a sudden, he can't breathe, and it's getting harder for him. So he takes him to the Fortress of Solitude. Jor-El's AI is like, "Yeah, dude, he's about to die. You should probably help him. We're going to need to burn the kryptonite out of him like we've done for you in the past." I'm like, when did we see that happen? Do you remember when that happened?
No, but I'm guessing it's just, we're just supposed to go with it and just assume that it has happened, or not assume, but just take their word for it that it's happened before. That's to me, it sounds like a way for the writers to go, "You know what? Let's say that it's happened to Clark before. That way, it appears that they know what they're doing."
I think that
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think it does kind of harken back to the fact that he's like, "I've been through all of these things you've gone through," but obviously he's gone through them in a slower pace, so he had time to kind of build himself up to dealing with those situations. So maybe this is something that happened to him when he was younger, where like his frost breath manifests, didn't know how to deal with it, and they had to do something like that. So yeah, I'll give him a pass on it. Mm-hmm. So he's like, "Dude, this is gonna hurt. Hold my hand, squeeze as hard as you need to," and then Jor-El starts shooting him with lasers. And I really thought like maybe like he was gonna hit him with his heat vision. Like he was gonna hold on to him and like hit him with his heat vision and make it more like a personal thing, but no, it was just Jor-El like zapping him with lasers, like pew 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 pew. And it was a pretty good scene. Like he was just all out screaming, and he's trying to hold on to him while he gets through it, and he finally gets through it, and he's like, "Oh, you did a good job." While all this is going on, Sarah has gone in for her talent show, and of course with Jordan being in the Fortress of Solitude and no one there, her dad steps up, gets on the guitar, and starts strumming for her, and she sings the song. Everybody's happy. Her mom's happy, she's happy, the dad's happy, because all of a sudden the dad is a good guy who's trying to change and do better. And we're like, "Oh, okay, so we definitely know he's been what do we want to call it? He's a pod person. He's now a Kryptonian pod person."
See,
and now I thought that right away, because that's
where we differ.
It's too quick of a change.
No, it's partly true, but we did see in the previous episode where he sat down and was going to do. He was going to try and help her until he got sidetracked about not getting the job, and then that's when he got. That's obviously when he got flipped.
He went and got drunk and took off and disappeared.
But I think what happened was when he found out that he wasn't getting the job, that's when he went in and said something, and that's the clip we see at the beginning of the episode, right, where he goes into the office, he gets turned, and then he does. I don't think he showed up for the audition because
he was going through the process.
He was going through the process.
Sure.
It wasn't so much that he was off drunk. If you remember in this episode, he says that he blacked out and woke up in the cornfield. So in that whole time that he's when, like, I'm sure what happened was after he got flipped in the last episode, he was passed out, and when he woke up, it looked like he had been drinking, and that's what they thought. And then he's like, no, here's my thought on this whole thing with him. I liked where they were going with it in terms of giving him a redemption arc with his daughter.
Yes,
that was something I was hoping that they were going to do, because there are so many shows that try to portray like the dad as being adult, or the fact that he's not around, or he just doesn't care, or he's self-involved. This guy was obviously not so. I mean, at one point he was being a good dad, and this was prior to the show, and then he started, going on the way out. But in the last couple episodes, it looked like he was starting to make that turn back to being a good dad. So I was like, good, I'm glad to see this. And then they say, nope, we're not going to do that.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. But my point on that is, like, to me, when he comes in and he's like, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, I missed it. This and that." I'm like, okay, so we know that, and they did. They definitely made it seem like he was just, took off, went and got drunk because he was mad about not getting the job. But it does make more sense that he went and had the process done, then didn't remember, but he's so used to being blackout drunk, that he just attributed to that, and they attributed it to that. But as soon as he walks in there and he's like, "Oh, I'm quitting this cold turkey, I'm going to change my life, I'm going to be a better father, blah, blah, blah," I'm like, yeah, he didn't have that conviction when he said it the first time. The first time he said it to Lana and Sarah, he said it, but he didn't say it like this. And like this was like cultish pod person saying it, like super happy, like the friend was. I can't remember her name. Emily. I think her name was Emily. So like Emily came in with the same exact kind of demeanor as he did when he came in. I'm like, yeah, he's a pod person now. But with that said, they're at the performance. She performs. Everyone's happy. The Emily's daughter goes up there, and they gave us kind of a visual of like what Emily's life was prior to the change, where she was like, all of their bills were past due. They were getting foreclosed on the thing, but they were hiding it from the daughter, who was just happily sitting there reading a book. So like you get the impression that her family means a lot to her, and you know that from what she said to Lana in last episode. And as she's sitting there watching her daughter perform, who arguably I might say did better than Sarah, that's just my opinion. I felt like she's a better singer, but she's sitting there watching her, and then she just, like, you hear this tone, which obviously Superman can hear that tone from the emergency alert things they have. Apparently Edge has the same thing for his Kryptonians. And you hear the alarm go off, and you see her get up and walk out of the room. You see another person, I think, get up and walk out too, who we did see in the meeting earlier in the episode when she busted in, when Lois busted in on him.
Order 66 was put into effect.
It's pretty much what it was. Order 66. So they walk out, and then he walks out. Sarah's dad walks out with him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to check on her." Kyle's like, "I'm going to check on her because that just seems weird. She wouldn't leave her daughter." So then you kind of get this idea, like, maybe he's not involved. You know what I mean? And then they take off, and obviously they're going to do something with, to try to go and get Lois.
The thing about that is, she almost had like a zombified look on her face.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't.
Right.
Like, why?
Well, again,
why was he able to hide it?
Maybe it's because he can direct who he wants. So he called Emily specifically, like gave Emily the tone specifically, say, "Hey, come do what I'm telling you to do." You know what I mean? Like, it was a directed pulse to Emily, not to Kyle. He wasn't trying to activate Kyle. He was trying to activate Emily. Kyle followed along, and in doing so ends up, whatever. We'll get there. So she walks out and leaves, and Leslie Lar pops in and she's like, "Hey, you know what's going on with Superman?" And he's like, "Yeah, I know. I already saw it. I'm in the know already." And she's like, "Oh," and he's like, "I'm going to take care of it." He's like, "You're going to go after Superman?" She's like, "No, I'm going to go after the one he protects." And that's how we know instantaneously that they're going after Lois. Now Lois gives her dad what for in this episode when she realizes, like, dude, you try to kill my husband. You make weapons to try to kill my husband. In doing so, you've infected my kid, your own grandson, and what are you thinking? And he's like, I have to protect everybody. You know, when he's talking to Jonathan, he's like, I have to protect everybody. And you're like, no, you're just a coward. You're afraid of my dad, who's been done nothing but good things the entire time he's been here, and the entire time you've known him, and you won't even. You're making weapons to try to kill him. And he's like, I'll fix this. I'll get Jordan better. I've got my people on it. And during the episode, of course, if this was the Flash, Cisco would have come up with a cure like that before the end of the episode. Right. So she's like, after this is done, I never want to talk to you again. Forget that we exist. Don't come near me. And he's just sitting there on the farm in his car talking to his people like, you guys need to do something about this right away. And you look over and he's literally got the freaking bomb, the stupid like weapon in the car with him. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Yeah, when he goes, hey, he said something to somebody on the phone. He's talking to the lab, and he's like, yeah, I haven't had a chance to try it yet because circumstances or whatever.
Yeah, I did hear that line.
Well, when he says that, it pans over, and in the seat is the gas gun with a yellow vial and a green vial next to it. So he obviously has a version of the cure that he wants to try, as well as the original gas that he has for protection.
So I have a thought on that I just thought of. What happens is he's sitting out in the car, and Lois and Jonathan are in the house. There's a knock on the door while Lois is on the phone talking to the other girl that works at the newspaper,
Chrissy,
and she's telling her about some of the symptoms that people were seeing, and that she was talking to Lana. She was talking to Lana because Lana was like, yeah, she just got up and left, and she was acting really weird, and then lo and behold, she's at the front door with the other dude that we saw previously in the meeting that Lois had interrupted.
Yeah.
So, it turns out, they come right out and say that they got to kill her, and they're shooting laser beams out their eyes, and then that's when Lana's dad shows up and hits them with some gas. I think that's what was sitting in the front seat.
Yeah. It definitely was. But supposedly we don't know. We know it weakens them, but what he was supposed to have was supposed to be like a prototype cure. So if we don't see them get better next episode, what was it and why did he have it? That's my question, is what it comes down to. Because he was supposed to be using this on Superman. Like, that was the whole idea, was I'm going to test this on Superman, but he wasn't interested in doing that because Jonathan got sick, so we took off.
Well, I wonder how it will affect them, because
they're not actual Kryptonians.
Yeah, it's not the same thing as blasting Superman with it. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. Will we see anything more from it? I don't know. It's possible we don't.
Well, as he's fighting them off, they run for it. He's like, "Get out of here! I'll hold him off," trying to be, the hero for his daughter. All of a sudden, and she's like, "Okay, we got to go." And she grabs Jonathan, and they run out of the house. And Jonathan's like, "No, we need to go to the barn." And I'm like, "Why are you going to go to the barn?" And now I was like, "Oh, there's a like a shelter. There's like a underground thing in the barn where the ship, where Clark's ship was." I was like, maybe they're going to that. So they run in there, and Jonathan opens a board in the floor and pulls out a bunch of John Henry Irons weapons that apparently, after almost being killed on the RV, he stole.
Well, and not only that, Jonathan Henry, or what's his name?
John Henry Irons.
John Henry? Yeah. He didn't even notice that they were gone.
Right. He just got in the car and drove off. He's like, I didn't check anything. But, apparently these weapons are focused red sun energy, so it is the same energy that he was using in the lights to weaken Superman. So obviously this is an effective weapon against them because they're not as strong as Superman when it really comes down to it. Because as we know, they needed to weaken Superman last episode in order for that dude to be able to fight him. For Glitchy McGee to fight him. So he blasts him with the light weapon. And she's like, why do you have the guns? And I'm like, just leave the kid alone. He saved your butt. Let him have the guns. It's not that big of a deal.
Prior to doing that, though, Lana's husband comes in and he's like trying, to play cool. He's like,
oh, dude,
give me the gun.
He played it off. He played it off well, though. Like, I sent the comment to you. I'm like, oh, they played this off really well. I got to give it to the writers. Like, when he walked in, he seemed like he was on their side. He's like, I just followed them over here. I saw them coming after you. Are you guys okay? Like, he played it off very well. And then he was just like, and then you see the snap. You see him go from the fake Kyle, like, concern to the Kyle Kryptonian. And he's like, yeah, I'm here to kill you kind of situation.
Yeah, and I think what happened was Morgan Edge probably, felt some kind of presence or what have you, that the other two just got yeeted out the barn. So he...
yeeted deletus.
And so that's when he flipped his switch to go Kryptonian.
Well, that's when Superman shows back up.
And then leaves and then it yanks him out of there, ends up leaving him in a field.
Yeah.
Who knows how far away. Because he shows up the next day and he's dirty and he's like, I don't know. He's like, I went to follow him and I blacked out and I woke up in a field. I don't know what happened.
So let me ask you this: do you believe? Okay, go ahead.
And then Lana realizes that he's been flipped as well.
Right.
And so that's pretty much where the episode ends.
Well, there's a couple more things that I want to talk about real quick first, though. But in this question is, do you believe that he doesn't know? Like, is it a situation of like the Kryptonian soul is being held inside their body and it can activate itself when it wants to or be activated and just takes over their body like it's driving a mech, like, and their consciousness blacks out and he doesn't know what's going on while the Kryptonian's taking control of their body. Do you think that's a real thing that's actually happening, or is it still just part of the power play of I don't know what's happening, I just blacked out?
I think for right now, I think in the early stages of the Kryptonians being put into the humans, I think that is true. Because they, whether it's the humans or the Kryptonians, neither one of them have been through this position before. So maybe the Kryptonians don't have a full sense of power on being able to take over their entire body.
They can't completely control them.
But then the longer that they're in there, they're able to, the human starts to lose out and the Kryptonian takes over full control. Which is a good point, because Leslie Larr she's full Kryptonian, like she's in full control. But that's the point that I wanted to get to is during the episode, Lois, Chrissy, and Lana are trying to figure out why Edge is even in Smallville. He's gone to those other two towns. He's basically dried them up and left after he destroys the town, and then moves on to the next town, and now he's in Smallville. But in Smallville, he seems to want to stay there, and they're trying to figure out why that is. They know that the ex-Kryptonite is there, obviously. They know what he's doing, but they don't know why he's trying to stay. And by the end of the episode, they realize, oh, he's here because of the people of Smallville. Now, we find out that the Subject 11 that was murdered by Leslie Larr in episode 3, I think it was, and Leslie Larr are both from Smallville. I have a problem with this revelation, because if she's from Smallville, people there should know her, because she grew up there. She's from there. She's been exposed to Smallville. And this is, and they go back and find her in a yearbook. Like Clark goes and grabs his yearbook and he finds her in there under a different name, obviously.
But no one remembers her. No one realized like, hey, she's come home. They know Clark came home, but they don't realize that she's part of that town originally. But basically, she's like, okay, when Clark landed in Smallville as a baby, the planet was bombarded by pieces and shards of Krypton. That's why there's kryptonite on the planet in the first place. So obviously, this X-kryptonite is not truly synthetic kryptonite. It's literally more parts of Krypton. And it is possible maybe that X-kryptonite, I seem to remember a story somewhere, and I might be wrong about this, and anyone who's watching, if I am wrong, fill me in, but I seem, in the back of my mind, to remember a story about a repository, and in the repository, they had, they would save the consciousness of the citizens of Krypton. I think that this is a thing that happened, and I don't know why this is in my head, but if that's the case, maybe that's what the X-kryptonite is. It's the pieces of that have flown to Earth. But my problem with it is why are they all evil? Because not everybody on Krypton was evil, and not everyone on Krypton wanted to like murder people or would even listen to him if they said so. But I digress to that point. So she figures out like he's not there just to help the town. He's there to take over the town and use the people to create his own Kryptonian army, which is exactly what John Henry Irons is trying to fight against. So I think that in John Henry Irons' timeline, maybe Superman is actually Edge. You see what I'm saying? Like maybe it's a flip. Maybe the good Superman was somebody else. And that Superman in his world was actually like Morgan Edge, who was a Kryptonian that was just like, I'm going to take over this planet. Because at the end of the episode, Edge summons Superman somewhere. I'm not sure where they are. I'm going to say it's in Mesa, Arizona or something. Because there's just like, it looks like
nothing.
Yeah, you can't really tell. And he's like, hey.
He's making sure there was no recording.
Right, make sure nobody's around. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he's like, he reveals to Superman, he's like, hey, I'm a Kryptonian too. I arrived on Earth before you did. So this is a true thing. Like, there were Kryptonians that came to Earth in an expeditionary type factor, like just exploring the world, because at one point in the story, if I remember correctly, Kryptonians thought they were the only sentient beings in the universe, like we do. Like, we don't think that there are other sentient beings for the most part.
Don't speak for everybody.
Some people, anyway, as far as the Earth as a whole thinks, there may be life out there, but right now we think that we are the predominant species in the universe. And at one point, Kryptonians thought the same thing, so they had sent expeditions out to see if there was anything else out there. And some of them landed on Earth, some of them crash landed on Earth and were never seen again, so he could be part of that, like, military force, which would make sense as to why he's so, like, hell-bent on taking over the planet type of situation. So he's like, I arrived on Earth the same time, or I arrived on Earth the same time you did, but he probably arrived as an adult because he is older than Clark. So if he did arrive when Clark did, and he's like, brother, and I'm like, that's a stretch. And you would ask me, he's like, does he have a brother? And I'm like, no, it's a pejorative brother, like, we're both Kryptonian, you're my brother type of situation. I think that's what they meant more in that respect than him actually being his blood relative.
My first thought was a legitimate brother.
But if you look at I was
taking the word on face value.
He is wearing a Kryptonian sigil. So Superman's is the S, which is the sigil for House L. Whatever he was wearing, I've never seen before. It's not a sigil that I recognize. And the main houses, and I was like, okay, well, maybe he's supposed to be Zod. Like, maybe he's Zod, but Zod's sigil looks kind of like an Omega symbol turned half sideways. And I'm like, that's not the Zod symbol at all. So whatever this is, I think it's going to end up being a new, like, house, but I think it's going to be like a branch of House Zod. And he's actually going to be like a militaristic, like, conquering Kryptonian, which is what Zod was, being the head of the military. The House Zod was the head of the military there. So I think that that's a very good chance that that's what's going on. So by the end of the episode, this is a great episode. Lots of action, lots of craziness. We got to see, I think for me, the best part about it was seeing that Jonathan has figured out a way to be part of the super family, and defend Lois, defend himself, and I think it'll break him out of that I feel helpless phase, because he's got, the ability to use weapons to defend himself and Lois. So I kind of like that aspect of it. I like the idea that General Lane is now, not only is he making weapons from Project 7734, but he's also trying to make like Kryptonian medicine in there as well. So it's kind of forced him into that aspect of things. The emergence of another Kryptonian on Earth already, even though we know Supergirl's around too. And there's been other Kryptonians on Earth, because this is the same thing as Supergirl. Like, they're in the same continuity as the actual Supergirl. So we know there's a lot more going on than we see here in other things, because Morgan Edge is also in Supergirl. He's just a different character. So it's an interesting reveal. I like it. I'm interested to see where it goes. This is a great episode. For me, this is probably the closest of a 9 out of 10 episode that you can get.
Yeah, I enjoyed this episode as well too. I think, like I said in the beginning, I think they're starting to amp things back up. Not back up, but they're starting to crank things up, and I'm really enjoying it. And the storytelling is getting a lot better. Not that it was bad, but it's certainly going, oh, this is getting juicy. It seems like we're starting to pull away a little bit from the teen drama that we had sprinkled throughout the previous episodes. I'm hoping we kind of get away from that, and yeah, I look forward to see what happens next week. Like I said, this season of this show has been so much better than what we're seeing on the Flash.
It's currently refreshing. It's refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, we're only watching a few shows right now, and Flash used to be at the top of the list as our favorite and the best written. Now it's completely towards the bottom, and Superman and Lois is towards the top now. There's some competition, let's just say.
Well, predictions for next episode, I think John Henry Irons is going to return. We're definitely going to see a battle between I don't know, Edge and Superman. I don't know what we're going to call him soon. Hopefully we'll find out what house he belongs to and what his actual name is.
Nope.
No?
Hold on. I think you hold off that Edge and Superman confrontation until the finale.
Really?
Yes. I'm going to tell you why. It builds tension.
Maybe.
Let me there's one thing that I've learned from wrestling. And I'm totally serious.
You can't introduce a heel and just have him do his thing. I got you. Go ahead.
No. Here's what it is. Back in the days of ECW, they had a feud building between Sabu and Taz.
Okay.
Right? Now, I know people watching this probably have no clue what I'm talking about, but believe me, this makes sense. But they had them battling each other for over a year. Battling while never throwing a punch, never seeing each other. They built this up on TV through a series of vignettes for over a year. That way, when they finally did meet in the ring, then it had already been built up so much that this was just an explosion. That's what you do with this. Obviously, you're not going to build it up for a year, but build it up for the rest of the season. Build this tension between the two up. Like, they're getting close to going out, and if something happens and they don't end up doing it, or they just they're not even in the same screen at the same time until the final thing. Maybe one of them keeps screwing with the other one, doing things, causing problems, and Superman's getting frustrated, and this anger is starting to build up, and then finally in that season finale, that's when you do it.
Well,
that's when you have that season finale that's like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened, and then you leave it, you leave a cliffhanger for the next season. That's how you do it.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Keep them separated from each other for a while.
Well, we'll see what happens, but yeah, this is definitely a great episode. I think that's it for the episode, dude. We did it.
Yeah, I think so. We do want to thank you for watching, and also, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button down below, and hit the little bell for notifications as well, and please give this video a thumbs up because we do appreciate it, and it does really help out the channel. Just so you know, we do our show live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. On Twitch. That's twitch.tv/MillerKing_51. That link is in the description down below. And come and join the chat and talk with us as we are currently doing Flash and Loki. So, on behalf of Vic,
that's me.
Wherever he's at, I'm Corey. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya!
Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakdown Podcast YouTube channel. My name is Corey, and in this video...
You were laughing, so I couldn't stop laughing. I knew you were trying to stop laughing, and you couldn't do it, so it was making me laugh even more.